You found the skeleton. How would you tell if it's a zombie? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
Hey everybody, welcome to Dapper Reacts 68. It's another Tuesday edition. I think this is our second Tuesday edition that we've done, Vishanti. It might not be the second Tuesday edition for Dapper Reacts ever, but I'm pretty sure it's only the second one with you here. So,
yeah,
pretty great.
I'm pinch hitting tonight. So, hello everybody.
Yep. Today was announced and originally scheduled to be Jackson with Jackson. That has been moved to tomorrow, but because I have promised people Tuesday streams, I couldn't just not have a stream today, so I am having a Dapper Reacts. We've got a new video to look at. This is based on a Answers in Genesis talk given by one David Menton, the late David Menton. He is, or he was a human anatomist, and he's going to be telling us how evolution is baseless. Also, Rosina, Apophenia God Keller for 199 says, topical antibiotics don't taste good. I would imagine not, no. Y'all also might notice that we have a new element to the set here. We now have a thermometer type tracker for when we hit things like the fancy new Dapper avatar, or, well, not necessarily a new avatar, but when I use a fancy avatar, and a Dapper 2 too. So, as I'll give a quick demonstration as you guys, super chat or gift memberships. It goes up. And it's currently at $1.99. So there you go. A little bit later, I might add some polls to see if you guys want to see like the current donation just up there or not. I don't know. It feels a little tacky, but other people disagree with me. So what do I know? I'm just some dinosaur. So yeah, Vishanti, how you doing?
It's kind of a loaded question.
I'm sorry. It's not usually a loaded question. It wasn't meant to be.
Be more specific.
Are you feeling well today?
There's a headache threatening, but so far it hasn't fully manifested, so that's good. I'm drinking delicious cold seltzer water that's been lightly essenced with the passing thought of Raz Cranberry.
Okay.
And yeah, I've been having better sleep, which is good.
It is
not
good.
Staying up till 2 a.m. and getting up at 11. So
yeah, you're definitely not doing that to do things like
good.
watch the season finale of Shogun a few days ago or anything.
Gosh, so good.
Yeah. But anyway, we're not here to talk about Shogun, much as that might be fun. We are instead here to talk about David Menton and his evolution is baseless speech from Answers in Genesis. Now, this is a fairly old talk, but I had not heard it before, and I skimmed through it, and if I remember correctly, he does make some arguments that I don't think I've addressed here on Dapper Reacts, so I figured it would be a good thing to add in there. But before we get into it, we do have the drinking rules to go over, because it is a Tuesday stream, and Tuesday streams are drinking streams. I have some wheat beer here. So, first of all, we will take a drink anytime David Menton says something that's just too stupid not to, right? Just soothe our brains sometimes. So, we'll also take a drink if David Menton gets something that is actually factually correct, but that he's not just directly quoting from some other source. So it actually has to be knowledge that he has, that he uses his brain and his vocal apparatus to impart to us. Take a drink if he gets that right. We'll also take a drink anytime David Menton tells a joke that doesn't land or tells a story that didn't happen. We'll take a drink if David Menton, and he has done this in the past, so this is a realistic possibility, if he mixes up what we can know from the single skeleton of Lucy, the Australopithecus afarensis, with what we can know about either her species or her genus or even her family or tribe or subfamily, whatever, we will take a drink, but we can only do that once per stream, because once it starts, it just kind of keeps going for a little while. We will also take a drink if David Menton cites a source, and we look at that source, and not only does it fail to support his contention, but it actively contradicts him. We call that a Trojan source. We'll also take a drink if David Menton mentions that prominent German political party that you might know of from history in, like, the 1930s and 40s. We'll take a drink for that. Technically, it doesn't have to be Godwin's Law, because Godwin's Law involves comparing or calling the person you're arguing with a member of that party, or comparing them to that members of that party. And that, he just has to mention them. They do it all the time. All the time.
Yeah.
So there is also, if either Vishanti or I manage to get a prediction correct on what Menton's going to say next, when it's not super obvious, which again, judgment call, then we take a drink for that. There's a few of them that are judgment calls, you know what? And I'm in charge of the drink counter, so I can just add numbers to it, and no one can stop me. Like, literally, you would have to come and physically restrain me in order to stop me from just, like, putting a 3 up there. So,
I'm going for your knees first, because I'm not worried about your arms.
My tiny little arms. Lieutenant Professor Savage Cobra says, too stupid, such as the forehead and the orbits are on the same part of the skull. Yeah, that was mostly just lying. And then DM Original In Situ Academic Excavation Wing for $5 says, is this Dr. David if a dinosaur had feathers, it's a bird, Menton? Yes, it is. It absolutely is. So, and also, check this out. I did it wrong. I can go, boom. Now the people have given more super chats. The bar went up. I
don't like this thing where I don't end up taking a nap, and then just for no apparent reason around 6, I just start yawning, just chronically.
Yeah,
don't like that.
I can see where that would be inconvenient. Also, Astoryu, who's a member for 14 months and is at the amniote level, says, AIG is a bag of the body part male echidna has decided they need 4 of. We will take a drink for that. It's not quite true. They have 4 tips, but only 1 base. So, you know, putting that out there.
Oh, I'm gonna have a really neat little announcement towards the end of the stream.
Oh, fun. Well, it's also a few ways you guys can make us drink, one of which you just saw from Astaryu. So if you super chat anything to the effect that AIG are a bag of dicks, we will take a drink for that, because AIG, historically, although much less so in the last few years, has been pretty aggressive with the copyright claiming of various videos. DM Original In Situ Academic Excavation Wing says that I missed yours? Oh, wait, was there a there was a Mothra. I'm sorry, yeah. We'll drink for the Mothra. So, another one is that if you put in the channel emojis, if you're a channel member, in any super chat or milestone chat of the kaiju, that's Godzilla, we've got King Ghidorah, and we've got Mothra, we will take a drink for that. And last but certainly not least, we will also take a drink for gifted memberships. We'll take a drink for each gifted membership, up to the point where we have to have about 30 drinks, at which point I'll just finish this beer, grab another one, and add the appropriate number to the drink counter. That
Which
being
beer?
said, this is Shot Top.
Nice.
Yeah. I also, if I mess up the production, which I guess I technically did just now by messing up the little thermometer?
Dapper's a professional.
That's Dapper's a professional. Take a drink for that. 23 for $2 says, AIG is a bag of things that snakes have 2 of. There we go. That also works. Although, again, technically, they're hemipene. Not the same thing as the mammalian member. So take a drink for it. Okay. Vishanti, I'm not going to ask, are you ready? Because you're definitely not. Are you likely to be more ready in the next 30 seconds or so?
I actually am ready this time.
That's what you think.
Ever the contrarian.
Here we go.
Very, very different. Here's a gentleman, Jacques Monod, very distinguished scientist. Sadly, he died some years ago. He won the Nobel Prize in biochemistry, so we're talking a top-drawer scientist, to say the least.
Okay, so one of
Top
my
drawer.
top drawer, yeah. So one thing I want to point out about winners of the Nobel Prize, and it's this thing called Nobel disease, right? So Nobel,
It's real.
It really is. Nobel laureates have this tendency to, well, go kind of crazy, and yeah, they often say things that are very, very silly. So anytime someone says, well, this Nobel laureate said, I'm like, that's actually not a great great qualification.
But also appeal to authority.
Well, yeah, there's that too. Rosina Apophenia God Keller for $4.99 says, "Did someone already say AAG is a bag of barbed hemi-beans?" Technically, not in those words, so we'll take a drink for it. All right, here we go.
He wrote a book called Chance and Necessity. And in this book, he said that everything in the biosphere, everything in the living world, came into being by just two principles. One of them is chance. I think you all know what he had in mind with that. And the other...
I mean, probably chance.
Probably chance. Like,
yeah.
All right.
Why is this being said like it's some kind of like evil innuendo? Like you probably know what he mean by
I think
that.
you all know what he meant by that.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. If you know what he means. Yeah. Chance.
Ridiculous.
There was necessity. What exactly did he have in mind by that? By necessity, he meant the laws of nature. And that...
Technically, that's true. That is what he meant. It seems pretty obvious, but good job, David. You figured it out, buddy. And Lieutenant Professor Savage Cobra says for $2, AIG is a bag of bells. I'll accept it. It's on the border, but I'll take it. I'll take a drink.
You know what? It's close enough to Bell End. So.
Yeah, that's exactly why I'll take it.
Because it's ends of bells, so. Yeah. Bell Ends.
Bag of ends of bell. Yeah, bag of ends of bell. Yeah, it works. I'll take it. Look, I'm pretty generous with those. If it's got AIG is, I'm pretty sure I know what you mean, so take a drink for it.
I think you should read this comment by Christopher Canadatheist.
At Vishanti, not sure if Dapper is aware, but French verb for to lie translates mentir, so HeLa translates to il ment. I can't watch a Menton video without thinking this is very apt. Yeah, no, I agree.
My friends, is where evolution's going. Chance does...
Oh, that reminds me. There's a reason that one of my video series about David Menton was literally called Mendacious Menton, because mendacious shares that same etymology as mentir in French. Carrie Bronson for $5 says, by chance, he really means opportunity to get laid. I don't actually think that's right, but I'll take it anyway. Rosina Aquafinia God Keller says, today I learned YouTube doesn't censor hemipenes in super chats. Try it, everyone. It's true. They do not seem to censor that word, so that's pretty cool. All right, here we go.
Doesn't get you very far. As we'll see, natural selection doesn't get you very far. You have to look for something that produces sort of self-ordering, something that's a necessity, something that's a law that kind of produces form or structure or order, anything at all to get a leg up on chance.
I really don't understand what he means by get a leg up. When natural laws act on unpredictable systems, there are outcomes that can have emergent complexity. Like, we know that very simply. Just look at a snowflake, right? A snowflake is a result of the relatively chaotic nature of water vapor atoms suspended in the atmosphere and the laws of physics. And they result in very orderly, complex structures as a result of chance and nature. I don't know what leg up you mean. But Goop23 says AIG is. It's like God is. That's a little bit too obscure. Sorry, Goop2. Don't go read God is, but just know that God exists, and Almondo can prove it.
God exists per se.
Yeah, God exists per se.
And so in his book, specifically what he said, and by the way, he was an atheist, very outspoken atheist.
Okay.
He said, chance alone is at the source of every innovation of all creation in the biosphere. Pure chance, absolutely free but blind, is at the very root of the stupendous edifice of evolution. I could give you quotes like this. I mean, all evening long, we could just go one quote.
I'm with Tesla Ranger on this. Water's a molecule. There's no such thing as a water atom.
Did I say atom? I'm sorry about that. Look, for some reason, I always misspeak when I talk about chemistry, and the reason is because I'm bad at chemistry. I do know the difference, though, and it's true. Water is not an element unless this is ancient Greece, or maybe Avatar, The Last Airbender. Love True Music for $2 says, how about AIG is an AIG Bell? We'll take it. I'll take it. And then Drewski, well, first I'll take the drink. Drewski, with their first super chat, thank you so much, says AIG is a bag of corkscrew-shaped duck organs. Ooh, that's a good one. We're just going through, we're just cycling through all the intermittent organs. Let's just hope that we don't come to the bed bugs.
Oh.
Yeah, not fun. Flatworms also. Flatworms, some species of flatworms do the same thing. So, be lucky you're not a planarian. And if you're out there and you're thinking, no, I'm male, I'd be fine. Yeah, planarians don't have males or females. They just have a fight, and whoever loses gets that traumatic insemination. Oops. Don't lose a fight as a planarian.
I swear, somebody changes their display name to traumatic insemination.
That one actually might not get past YouTube. That one might get blocked. Ryu for $4.99 says, taking a drink for random chance, like that is anything resembling a gotcha. I mean, if God is omnipotent, surely he can control chance. I mean, I would presume so, yeah. And then the question would then probably become like, does God control chance in a way that actually seems different than what you would expect if he weren't controlling it? And I did mess up the counter there a little bit, so we'll take a drink for Dapper's profession. It's the first day with the counter.
We have some sock puppet imposters in the chat. That's cute.
Oh! Well, if the sock puppet imposters start causing problems, my mods, I'm sure, know what to do. And I'm pretty sure that that's not the real Matt Dillahunty. Although I guess it's not impossible that it's just a different person with that name who happens to be an outspoken anti-atheist.
It's also spelled Dillahunty.
Oh, is it? I didn't even notice.
Yeah.
Dr. Dino, for $5 says, aloha amigo, how bad's Night Creationist? Oh, it's David Menton. He's just on the cusp of smart enough to know better, which means I strongly suspect that he was mostly lying.
That is such a good backhanded compliment. He's just on the cusp of knowing better.
I've been researching bovid and tricorns for no reason in particular. They're very interesting. I agree, they are very interesting. One of my favorite bovid species to look at the horns of is bison latifrons. A very fascinating organism. One that's been found in many places, including outside Denver, as well as this Miles City over in Montana. So, I don't know why I brought that up. Rosina Apophenia God Keller for $4.99 says, Dapper, I find one can be betterer at chemistry if you treat it as a strict subset of quantum mechanics. I mean, but then I would have to be good at quantum mechanics, and I'm also not good at that. So, you know. And then for $2,
isn't chemistry just physics, though? Like, really?
Yeah, that's true. Then Science Nerd for $2 says, AIG is a bag of chondrichthyan modified pelvic fins. Ooh, very nice. And astotraumatic in Navy... in Navy soldieration. Yeah, insemination. Got it. Ryu for $1.99 says, I'm doing my part, Vishanti. That's pretty great. All right, here we go. I'm gonna go ahead and guess that insemination didn't make the cut here on YouTube.
Probably not.
Probably not. No. Sorry, YouTube. It's a science term. I don't know what to tell you.
After another, pure chance. One moral suffice. Julian Huxley, I mean, he's about as major figure as you can find in evolution. In fact, the quote I'm giving you comes from a...
I mean, as major a figure as you can imagine as of, like, 110 years ago or something. Yeah,
odd years ago. Like, okay.
And Fake Degrade Our Worldview comrade, who has been a member for 24 months and is at the amulet level, says, Hemipenes, Godzilla. So yes, we'll take a drink for Godzilla, and I suppose for Hemipenes, but that's not a rule. All right, here we go.
Series of books called Evolution in Action, published back in 1953. Huxley was the keynote speaker when evolutionists were celebrating the 100th anniversary of the...
Oh, I'm thinking of the original Huxley. This is like his grandson. All right, fair enough.
Aldous?
Yeah, okay. Fair enough, Menton. Sorry.
You know, science stopped in, like, the year 1903 anyway, so I don't know why we're...
Based on what creationists say, that might as well be true.
Yeah.
publication, or yes, of the publication of Origin of Species, and the 150th anniversary of Darwin's birth. As you know, just recently, it was the 150th anniversary of the publication of Origin of Species and the 200th of Darwin's birth. So 50 years ago, Julian.
Okay, well, I guess now we know when speech was given, which it was like 10 years ago or something.
Huxley was the keynote speaker to represent what evolutionists were thinking about. And this is what he said about evolution. Nowhere
I sure do care.
in all of its vast extent is there any trace of purpose or even of perspective significance. He said that evolution is impelled from behind by blind physical forces. He went on to say that evolution is I like this expression, evolution is a gigantic and chaotic jazz dance of the particles and radiations. Hey, that'd have been a good place to put a period right there.
Okay.
I mean, it kind of completes the thought. We understand what he meant.
Is he nitpicking Huxley's grammar? Because, I mean, I'm not going to say that that's wrong, because I do that kind of thing, but, like, I don't know what the point is exactly.
Would that change the meaning of anything?
Not really. No.
Huh.
Roasting an Apophenia God
Okay.
Keller for $1.99 says, YouTube does allow insemination. All right. And then Donald Jaramillo for $2 says, how about hemosemidepinis? I guess it allows that one, too. Yeah, seems like it. So.
Which Huxley am I thinking of, Sir Equinox? Because Aldous Huxley wrote Brave New World. Thomas Huxley?
Too many Huxley. Why are there so many Huxleys?
Too many Huxleys.
I've never met a single Huxley in my life, and yet they're all over the place when it comes to like literature and science. What's up with that? This is the real conspiracy. Everyone thinks it's the globalists. No, it's the Huxleys.
But he kept on after this. And I'm telling you, this is just a guess of mine. I do think, maybe, possibly, God came down, grabbed him by the cheeks and says, Julian, you're going to finish this sentence just the way I tell you. Do not deviate one word, because how else can you explain that?
Okay, so
Does
Julian...
God micromanage people's grammar all of a sudden?
I love the idea that suddenly God came down after having apparently not inspired anyone for thousands of years, right? Because it's not like the Christians have been adding books to the Bible for the most part, accepting certain groups like the Mormons, sure, whatever. And then suddenly he was like, all right, this guy who's an atheist, who stands against everything I stand against, at least according to Menton, I'm going to inspire this guy right now, but only for like half a sentence. Like, okay, I mean, I guess I technically can't argue that that didn't happen, but like, seems far-fetched.
He went on to say as follows, remember?
Liz D.
Blind.
Liz D in the chat says maybe it's Shaddam Huxley the Fourth.
The Padishah Emperor.
Yes.
That's the little known Huxley dynasty. Yeah.
The Huxley dynasty, House Carino.
Fits a random chance conspiracy rage, who's been a member for 10 months and is at the amniote level, says AIG is what evolution got stabbed from behind with. Oh. With a Godzilla and a Ghidorah and a Mothra. And then a bunch of both good and bad Tunicates. Yeah, both good and bad ones. We'll take a drink. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Alright, here we go.
Impelled by blind physical forces, a chaotic dance of the particles and radiations, in which
Radiations!
the only, you see that word up there, only? In which the only overall tendency we've so far been able to detect is that summarized by the second law of thermodynamics, the tendency to run where? Down. That would be the wrong way.
Does that mean that all of it runs down?
No, actually, the second law of thermodynamics...
Does that mean... Yeah, I was going to say, because it's overall and tendency. Doesn't mean all.
Yeah, the second law of thermodynamics is, first of all, a statistical law, which means that it does not actually have to be followed in every instance. It also only applies to isolated systems, none of which actually seems very relevant to evolution, because life forms aren't isolated systems, the Earth isn't an isolated system. And again, it's only a statistical law, but yeah.
You're on your way from an expanding cloud of hydrogen to, say, Albert Einstein. Somewhere you got to go up a little bit.
Oh, no.
Up.
Yeah, you do have to go up a little bit. But I've used this analogy before, right? You ever seen a fast-flowing river that has, like, rocks in it? Sometimes parts of the... Now, we all know, right, water flows downhill. We learned that in, like, I don't know, 3rd grade
Elementary
or something.
school.
Yeah, like, very early on, right? You learn rivers always flow downhill. Okay, that's one of the reasons why if I'm ever, you know, like, stuck out in the wilderness and I need to find my way to civilization, I am going to follow a river downhill, because city will eventually be there. So, but in that fast-flowing river with the rocks, does any of the water ever go uphill? Right when it hits that rock? And the answer is, of course it
Only
does.
in like a little, teeny little bump.
But it still does it. Water doesn't always flow downhill. Sometimes water flows uphill, but only a bit of it, and only for a little while. That's what life is. Life is a little bit of uphill flowing water in a much, much larger area of downhill flowing water. And I mean that entropically, right? The sun is losing far more energy to entropy than the amount of energy used by life to increase in complexity and overcome the second law of thermodynamics. If you take the system as just the solar system, entropy is increasing overall. But that doesn't mean that entropy has to increase in every single subset of that system. Now, we've had a whole bunch of stuff to read. So, let's see. First, we had Fits of Random Chance Rage gifting 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships. They went to Robert Adsit, Alex Markle, Ian Houston, Katina Packbays, and Deboop. So here comes 5 drinks. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Also, Nicholas Kale Music has joined the channel at the Tetraball level. Welcome, Nicholas, and I saw that people were already sending emojis, so I do appreciate that. We've also got a couple super chats. Asked Traumatic Insemination Ryu, I'm probably going to read it that way. For $4.99 says, water flows downhill. Then what about the Nile? As we've all learned from video games, north is up.
Don't miss Rosina Kellers.
Oh yes, Rosina Apopinia God Keller for $1.99 says, how many stars blew up to make us? So
Probably a lot.
it seems like there's at least 2 supernovas that seeded the nebula that the Earth formed out of with heavier elements. But then again, like, there were previous generations of stars that, you know, seeded those stars with heavy elements too. So, I mean, 2 is the most proximate answer that we can arrive at. And, I mean, who knows how many if you want to go all the way back to the Big Bang. Mind Finished Journey for $5 says, some critters have 2-tipped peni, some have quads. Do some have 7-branched candlesticks? Not that I'm aware of. If so, AIG would be a bag of those. Okay. Wait, is this a menorah reference? 7-tipped candlesticks as a reference for a 7-tipped intromittent organ, shall we say?
Probably.
Okay. All right. So let me just update the tracker because I don't have an easy way to integrate it right now. Because this is actually running in an instance of Blender. This is just the Blender viewer with 3D viewer. Yeah. So here we go.
It's amazing when people say these things. Just to give you further evidence that chance plays a major role in evolution, several years ago I visited the...
Which is a weird thing, because as far as I know, no one has ever contested that chance is a major part of evolution, right? It's like he's going around like, now let me try to give you some more evidence that gravity is a major factor in the orbits of the planets. Like, I mean, I guess you can, but why?
Right, well,
I mean, unless you're talking to flat earthers, no one really disagrees.
Field Museum of Natural History in Chicago, one of America's great natural history museums, and they actually had incorporated...
Oh, I'm going to answer a question. No, waiting a little bit until I can read out the chats and actually get a chance to update the thermometer is not a Dapper as a professional. Because it's not a mistake. That's just me having to get through stuff in the priority that they exist in.
A little gambling casino into their evolution exhibit just to emphasize the role of chance.
I just love how upset they are about that.
Yeah.
Nothing can be random. Nothing can be chance. All has to be planned. Every single bit of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, if it's not God's plan, then, I mean, it must be atheism, I guess. Not entirely sure how that works.
Ooh.
All right, here we go.
Picture of some kids going through here. I like to think of them as Tommy and Sally. I think they were brothers and sisters.
I mean, they don't look like brother and sister, but maybe.
They started off over here at this business on the left here. That's called a dice layout. They have these in gambling casinos, I've been told.
Ha! Ha!
I don't know. I've been in casinos. I don't remember seeing like the chance layout of dice just plastered anywhere. But then again, I don't really gamble, so I don't know.
I have been to several casinos and never seen one of those.
Yeah.
But I'm laughing because it's like one of those, well, you know, these are in a casino. Not that I would know. I'm a good Christian. I wouldn't gamble.
I'm trying to think. Last time I was in a casino, I think I was trying to get to the movie theater that was inside the casino. Because, you know, I was in Vegas, and the only way to get to anything that's more interesting than like a grocery store is you have to go through a casino. Yeah. So, like, I'm trying to navigate through this entire, like, a casino floor just to go watch. I don't even remember what movie it was, but it was just to go watch a movie.
And they were having fun just throwing the dice, you know, and banking them off the wall. And I'll tell you, I'm glad that a lot of young people don't read anymore. Because over the top was a sign that said, "Is life just a game of craps?" You know, craps, that's a slang word for dice, for chance. I think it was,
Gee, really?
Wow. All right, here we go. We're gonna have a poll here. Did you know that craps is the name of a dice-based game of chance? Just ask my audience if you guys know about this. Of course, my audience is all godless heathens, so they would know. But all right, TD Lane, who's been a member for 27 months, says, "Yo, cool fan art, Dapper. Thank you. This was. I actually get a lot of really cool fan art, and I really do appreciate it."
Tommy, your sister
This is,
Sally.
Something that I asked for specifically.
Yeah.
There, is she just one big crap game her whole existence? Your mother, your father, your Christianity?
I don't know exactly why we're bringing Christianity in, but the answer is no. It's not just chance.
Also, Dapper, where's the poll?
Oh, why isn't it? Why can't I? That was weird. The start poll button was grayed out, and I couldn't press it until I added an option and then took the option away again. I'm calling that a YouTube.
Oh, they're all fancy looking now.
Oh,
that's cool.
Goodness.
That's fancy.
Apparently, YouTube changed that. I think they might still be working out all the kinks.
Also, hey chat, if you're on desktop, click the 3 dots next to the live chat, like top of the live chat, and untoggle the reactions, and that stupid floating heart smiley face thing will go away.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Unless you like it, in which case you feel free to leave it. It's no skin off my back. But let's see. I missed a Rosina Keller super chat, I believe. So Rosina Apophenia God Keller for 499 says, does only Kent get a drink for a joke that didn't land? No, I mean he does too, but I think I missed the fact that that was supposed to be a joke. So you know what? I'm gonna update the tracker here and take a drink because that is a good point. So here's a drink. Okay, here we go.
Wow, I wonder if the parents prepared him for a challenge like this. Whether
Like
Also,
what?
like,
Learning science?
why is he complaining about, oh, these kids don't read anymore? It's just that you don't know how to use the internet.
Well, I mean, yeah, kids are reading a lot.
We read a lot.
Yeah, they're just not reading the things he wants them to read. Which presumably is like the Bible and very little else. Maybe the Bible and the Answers in Genesis website. The 2 sources of knowledge.
their pastor did, or their youth preacher, or their aunts and uncles, or their grandparents, did anyone prepare them to be challenged with, is your whole existence just one big game of chance?
Well, the answer is obviously no, whether you accept evolution or not. Because evolution involves significant non-chance factors, like sexual and natural selection. Those aren't chance-based.
Then they went over to the one-armed bandit, and over the top there was another sign. While they were cranking away on it, on the top it said, "Over time, tiny mutations add up to big changes." Boy, they got one thing right.
Yeah, that's... Yeah.
Right? Tiny mutations could really add up to big changes.
He's right. Take a drink for that. Good job.
Here's some tiny mutations right here for you. They're cancer cells growing in a dish. They're called HeLa cells. Well, I'll tell you, my wife, Debbie, and I, we both...
Oh, Ade. In the chat says, kids these days don't Bible. All they know is, hate God, Brando Sando, eat hot chip and lie.
You know, I still need more information about this hot chip. Because it sounds great. And
that meme will never get old.
No one has ever adequately explained to me which hot chip this is. As to traumatic insemination review, I can't do it. For 499 says, Vishanti's advice about the heart button doesn't work on iOS. Thanks, Susan. With a Godzilla, we'll take a drink for the Godzilla. Like the
actual iOS desktop, not like iOS on your phone? Are they the same?
I don't know. But that's the read, Mike. Which I realize is almost certainly who you were.
That sucks, Apple.
To.
Get with it.
Yeah, right. It's also possible that it's actually Google's fault, because they're the ones who write the app. So, you know. Then
get on it, Google and Apple.
Right. All right, let's update this. There it is. I like it. It's dynamic, right? The level just fills up. It's very nice. I gotta tell you guys. So I was trying to figure out a good way to get a completely customizable tracker for, like, you know, donation goals and whatnot. And I kept thinking to myself, if only I could just do it in Blender. And then I realized, yeah, I don't have to render it out. I can just screen cap the viewer. So there you go. And it took me until literally today to realize I can just do that. There's nothing stopping me. Literally nothing.
Came down with cancer here.
By the way,
years ago. We've been battling.
This has nothing to do with the stream, but hey, TD Lane, did you know we're getting high-speed rail from here to Vegas?
Nice. You can go see the skier.
Yeah.
I've had surgery and radiation and chemotherapy and the whole... It really works some major changes, but I don't think it's what they had in mind. I think they thought...
Hey, why would you get chemotherapy when you could just, like, have God heal you directly?
I mean, normally I would say I feel like most people who are theists get medical treatment, but then again, he was also an anti-vaxxer, so fuck him.
Kinds of mutations work for the better. Boy, these are some sick cells you're looking at here. Notice the nuclei are all different sizes. There's odd lots of DNA in there. The chromosomes aren't separating properly.
Congratulations, you figured out what cancer is.
What, right?
What am I supposed to take away from this?
These cells came from a lady over 60 years ago from her cervix. She was 31 at the time, checked in at Baltimore at Johns Hopkins, and they took these cells out and have been growing them in dishes ever since. These cells are so out of control. Yeah, and they also
didn't ask for her consent. So
yep. That's called an ethics violation. But seems like it didn't matter too much because Henrietta Lack was a black woman, and it was the 60s. Mm-hmm. And no one cared. So I will say, though, I don't think that's a good reason to stop HeLa cell research, because, I mean, it's providing a lot of medical technology, and also it's not like we can fix it for her. I mean, she died of that cancer decades ago, and so I think it's important to recognize the ethical violation there and put in place ethical rules to prevent any future such violations. But I'm not one who thinks that we should
people
ignore
would probably
science.
Be this much less upset about it if they just paid some restitution to her family.
Yeah, I'd be.
That would be a real that'd be a nice thing to do. Just saying.
Yep. Well, they just keep dividing. Normally, the cells in our body only have about 20 divisions, and that's the end. Maybe related to our lifespan. These things have been.
That depends heavily on which cell it is, right? The cells in your gut divide hundreds and thousands of times during your lifetime. Many of the cells in your brain barely get into the double digits. right? Like, it depends heavily on cell type. You can't just say that cells in the human body have 20 divisions and then they're done. That might be an average, but many cells go way over that.
Dividing for 60 years, and so far, out of her cervix, we've got about 20 tons of cells. They've been used in biological research. They're kind of the guinea pigs of cell biology. Dr. Jonas Salk used them to help solve the polio problem, so the lady has certainly served us in that way. Now,
Oh, how did he solve the polio problem, David Menton?
Was it vaccines? This is never getting monetized. I said vaccine more than once. We're done. Curious, isn't it?
About that, David, the polio problem. How did that happen?
Yeah. This was back before AIG became anti-vax, and that's specifically because it wasn't a right-wing thing at the time. It's interesting that they became anti-vax immediately as right-wingers were. Because remember, for a while, for quite a while actually, anti-vax.
It was actually the other way around.
Yeah, it tended to be a left-wing thing, right? It tended to be like hippies and like people who were too into granola who were anti-vaxxers, and they're like, I don't want all those chemicals in my body. But then,
well, I will say this though, is that hippies, they're free spirits, but they're really not that left-wing.
That's fair.
They're really not.
But yeah,
Anyway.
if you were to pick left or right, oh wow, congratulations, Hollyhock and Triceratops. And also, wasn't there someone else that I just missed? Rolled by? Charismatic insemination monger, maybe. Big number? I'm not sure. It's up to you. It's your bingo card. There's no prize, so I don't track it. But yeah, it's like, right as basically MAGA types in the US became anti-vaxxers, suddenly AIG was all like, well, I mean, I'm not saying I'm an anti-vaxxer, but I'm a vaccine skeptic, and you shouldn't be forcing people to have that. It's like, okay, you're anti-vaxxers.
And it wasn't based on any science. It was just anti-authoritarian, like, you can't tell me what to do, that kind of attitude.
Yep.
So.
And then Rosina Apophinia God Keller for 199 says, Janie McCarthy used to be the face. Also,
her and Jim Carrey. He tried to walk some of that back and be like, I'm not actually anti-vaccines, I'm just anti-bad chemicals in the vaccines. I'm like, so you're anti. Because literally there's more arsenic in an apple than there is in a vaccine, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also the people who complain about mercury compounds, those aren't used to stabilize vaccines anymore. So you got to pick something else.
Yeah.
Can't complain about that anymore. Also, Donald Jaramillo says, the body replaces itself every 7 years.
Oh, yeah.
So it is the case that basically every 7 years or so, pretty much every molecule that used to be in your body has been replaced. But that's not the same as all of your cells replacing. Some of your cells just have a complete turnover and stay the same. For instance, muscle cells, fat cells, and neurons basically never divide after you're an adult. So it is a little bit more nuanced than taking that 7-year statistic and just applying it to cell division. So, but it is an interesting point in that, yeah, there's some of that is definitely cell division. Okay, here we go.
My mom got very upset when I was trying to talk to her about getting the COVID vaccine when they first came out. She got very upset because she didn't want to get the vaccine because she didn't need it. And I said, Mom, you were born in, the late 50s. You remember getting smallpox vaccines. And she just looked at me and was very upset that I would dare to mention that.
I remember getting a smallpox vaccine. It's the second most unpleasant vaccine I've ever had. Anthrax was more unpleasant. Yeah. Let's see, we got for 569, nice. Asta Traumatic Insemination Ryu says, YouTube censors my super chats that mention the name of Menton's medical beliefs. Thanks, Susan. Yeah. YouTube. Their censorship of pseudoscience tends to hit the wrong targets. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
But also, we're going to end this poll and see how it went. So, how much of my audience knows that craps is the name of a dice-based game of chance? Yes. So 97% of my audience did know that. 2% did not. Okay. And Starsong for $5 says, some are now claiming vaccines cause gender dysphoria. I kind of want to throw something.
Man.
I want to throw something now.
Wow. They're just desperate.
Yeah, I really hate that. There isn't even a fake study on that, as far as I know.
I'm talking about, random mutations. I'm talking about just chance. If we had any evolutionists here, they'd say, you're just skipping over the thing that really makes evolution happen. All evolutionists agree that if it was just random change, you wouldn't get anything.
Yeah, you kind of are, Menton. Weird that.
But the deal maker is...
Oh, did you have something?
No.
Okay. Why is my computer being weird all of a sudden? Oh,
I don't know.
I know why.
Doing?
I know why.
I mean, I think Blender might be eating up a million resources if it was just me, but...
It's not. It's something else that's eating up a million resources, which I'm gonna stop it from doing that now. Yeah.
Oh.
Now it should be good. I had sheep it up.
Okay.
So
yeah, that was my second guess.
Technically, I guess that's Blender,
Whoops.
but it's not the Blender that's tracking the thermometer thing.
Natural selection. In fact, as nearly as I can tell, natural selection does everything for evolution
Oh, that was Dapper's
that God
impression.
does for creation. Well, that better be some sort of a theory, huh? We're talking to God.
I need you to elaborate on that a whole lot, Menton.
Yeah, this is not an equivocal,
Yeah, I
thing.
don't know what's up there. That's the traumatic insemination. Ryu says for $5. I mean, to be fair, vaccines do cause you to live long enough that you're more likely to experience gender dysphoria. So, I hate that I can't technically say you're wrong.
Yeah, it's not wrong.
Yeah, but it's something though. I'm now pouring my second beer already. I usually don't have to pour my second beer this soon. Well done, everyone. And then for $4.99, Rosana Apophenia God Keller says, "This is the censored word in YouTube super chats." Yeah. It's all with the italics, so it works.
We talked quite a lot about dicks last night when Kip was on the Deep Drinks podcast.
That sounds about right.
Hmm.
Yeah. All right. Let's update, and then we will...
And it wasn't Richard Carrier. It was actually about, the body parts.
I don't see a difference.
God's substitute here. Anybody give me a definition of natural selection? Let's see.
I mean, natural selection is differential reproductive success as a result of organisms trying to survive and reproduce in their environment. It usually excludes mate selection and artificial selection. So basically, it's selection that's not based on mate selection or not artificial selection, and that is not chance-based.
Damn, Menton's going for a blackout tonight.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's Menton. Lieutenant Professor Savage Cobra for $5 says, "The craps are also a thing experienced by many people who think antiparasitics are an adequate substitute for preventative medicine." Yeah, that's a whole other can of
Well, I
worms
mean, if
right
you
there.
drink enough bleach, it'll cure any disease.
Oh, no. It's true. It is true.
That is
but
not
no.
medical advice, YouTube. That is sarcasm. Please don't drink bleach. Don't do that.
I'm
You'll
gonna
die.
get a community guidelines warning.
How close you come. Natural selection is based on changes in the genes, most of which are the result of mutations. We're talking about random mutations. There are mutations in our body that are not random. They're predictable, they're reversible, they're repeatable.
Are there?
Does that mean God caused the mutation if they're not random?
I mean, I guess maybe.
Because he doesn't like the idea of chance and randomness, so does that mean God's directing the mutations? And if most of them are bad, is he making the bad ones happen?
Yeah, I don't know, but also I would like to know which
Ask
mutations
questions.
are predictable. Some mutations have a higher chance of occurring than others, but as far as I can tell, no one has found a deterministic way to figure out what mutations are going to happen when under any circumstances. So, I'm just going to go ahead and take a drink because I'm pretty sure that Menton just made that up. Robert Madewell with some good advice, contra to what Google says. Don't add glue. Food. Even if Google tells
Yeah.
you that it's a
Oh
good
my
way to keep the
God.
cheese from slipping off your pizza.
The AI.
Yeah.
But Larry and Geod now.
Yeah, because Google wasn't already bad enough. They had to give you an AI that will give you advice that might kill you.
That they scraped from Reddit.
Yeah.
You know, a site notorious for being serious about everything.
Mm-hmm. Rosina Apophenia and God Keller for $4.99 says, why don't young Earth creationists ever seem to acknowledge horizontal gene transfer? I think most of them just don't know about it, honestly. I think that's what it is for the majority of them. Yeah, I really think it is that simple. Because you gotta remember, the average creationist, and even most creationists like PhDs, they are extremely incurious when it comes to science. They don't want to know about science. They just want reasons to continue to believe what they believe about things like the history of Earth, genetics, and evolution. Like, they really don't care. Alright, here we go.
They have actually a function, but we're not talking about those. We're talking random mutations. And you cannot select what mutations do not provide.
Also
we talk
true.
about selection. Natural selection really
man.
isn't selection. I mean, there's nobody out
What happened this time?
He's just out here saying all this stuff without an ounce of self-awareness.
Yeah.
there making choices. And what is there to
No,
select from?
that's why it's called natural.
Right. That's the whole point of the
Selection.
natural part. Is that while a selection is made among options, it is not done consciously.
select from the mutations that are already there. You want to do an interesting experiment. Go down to your friendly Midas muffler dealer and order it.
That's
Oh,
the
here we
Midas-
go.
Trust the Midas touch.
We've got people making
Yeah, we're
analogies
comparing
based
it
on
to cars again.
Yep.
You know what, everybody? I'm gonna do some brainstorming and figure out like a clever pun for creationists using comparisons to automobiles for their biology.
And Carrie Bronson for $5 says, "There's a serving robot with cat ears in at my local restaurant. The AI uprising will be much cuter than the James Cameron led you to believe." Well, yeah,
I've eaten at a restaurant with a robot server.
yeah. I mean, the AI it's. Oh, and Doris Gisley has just joined the channel at the tetrapod level. Thank you so much, everybody. Send tetrapods and some sessile tunicates. No pelagic tunicates. Don't do the pelagic tunicates.
But they're so cute.
No, they're disgusting, horrible.
They are very cute.
No.
They're all like transparent and stuff, and they get to move around like.
They look like something you would buy on an adult website.
And
that's a weird thing for an animal to look.
friend, this is why Bad Dragon exists. Just saying.
I'm not saying that you're incorrect about that fact. All right, we're gonna keep going.
A dozen yellow roses. You won't get them. You know why? They don't stock them. Does it make any difference how badly you need the roses? Like you forgot your wedding anniversary or something? No, it doesn't make it.
He's not actually comparing biology to cars. He's just saying you can't buy roses at a car store. Therefore, you can't select mutations that don't exist in a population. And yeah,
Any difference at all. They don't stock them, you can't select them. So you can't select what's not already there to be selected. Now let's get to what most people would how they would define natural selection. Survival of the fittest. Is that what you've heard?
if it's what you've heard, it's because all you remember is a slogan from high school.
Yeah.
I don't like the phrase survival of the fittest. It was never the definition of evolution. It was only ever a slogan to help people who aren't specialists understand at a very basic level what natural selection is. One of the biggest problems is that, as I'm sure he's about to tell us, it's a bit tautological. The other one is that differential reproductive success, which is what we're actually talking about, isn't binary, whereas survival is. You either survive or you didn't. Differential reproductive success takes into account the fact that one organism might have 3 offspring that survive to pass on their genetic information to the subsequent generations. Another one might have 33. Which one do you think will have a bigger contribution to future?
33 UC. Oh
Exactly.
no.
Exactly.
Also, Jillian Huxley Conspiracy Wren says, you know who else didn't like that phrase? Charles Blessed Darwin.
That's true. He didn't. He was not a big fan. Oops. Just left off a whole decimal point there. So that's a Dapper professional. Also, that's a traumatic insemination Ryu for 669. Nice. It says all tunicates look like bad dragon merch, just not pelagic one. Maybe I just haven't seen enough of the merch. I don't know. I don't spend a whole lot of time on that website. You know,
It's kind of what Darwin came.
not that you're not allowed to. Go have as much time on that website as you want. I don't care. It's just not my thing. What? This is a very accepting channel. You go to whatever websites you want to that aren't like illegal.
I go to whatever websites I want to go to.
Don't go to
That's just a thing.
Don't go to the criminal ones. But other than that, I don't care.
Around survival of the fittest. Remember now, this is a God substitute, so it has to have a lot of explanatory power.
It's not a God substitute.
A God
though.
substitute. Okay, yeah, that's exactly what scientists were doing. They walk into the lab that day and they're like, "All right, guys." They pick up a test tube and they're like, "We got to find a substitution for God."
Yeah,
let's go.
Like, no one is pretending that natural selection is going to inform you of what the good is. It's going to save you from, the cessation of your consciousness at death. No one thinks it explains the origin of reality. No one thinks it's a personal entity that you can confess your sins to or pray to for help. It's just one of many mechanisms of evolution. That's it. That's all it is.
What do we exactly mean by survival of the fittest? Which creatures survive? Why, it's those that are fit. Isn't that true?
No, sometimes it's just those that are lucky. That's why it's a bad phrase, because not only does it lend itself to tautological interpretations, which is what he's complaining about, but even if you don't let it be a tautology, which it's only kind of, it still isn't very helpful.
What precisely...
I like what Asta Ryu says in the chat, science, or I can't believe it's not God. Sarcasm.
Well, and here's the other thing, right? A lot of Christians and other theists would actually say that having a natural explanation isn't the same thing as it not being God. Because if God is in fact, as most of them think, like the foundation of reality and the cause of the universe, then all natural causes ultimately are also divine causes, even if they operate according to consistent natural principles. So it's a dichotomy that you don't have to make to be a theist, right? You can just choose not to. In fact, I would argue that probably most theists do choose not to. But then again, I'm also not an expert on theism, or really anything.
Do you mean by the word fit?
Linguistics.
I'm not
History.
Nope, neither of those things.
Biology.
Nope. I don't have any degrees in biology or linguistics.
Never beating the charges. You're never beating the charges.
I hate that you're right about that. Because I'm not a linguist, everybody. It's not true. All right, we got a couple super chats here. For 666, the number of Nero Caesar. Oh, there it is. Finished Journey says, "Hail Nero Caesar." There you go. Okay. Yep. Also, can Dapper make a short video of the Darwin prayer, please?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Tell you what, guys, remind me of that, and I will try to make a. I'll try to make it into a YouTube short. So that way, yeah.
Also, I would like to formally request a whatever MPEG wave file thingy that you have it in of the goalpost rocket, because I really needed to use that a couple times this week and didn't have a
So you want like a video file format? Yeah.
I know it's not wave, but my brain is slowly losing the ability to find like proper words because thanks THC.
Well, just remind me, and yeah, I can definitely do that. All right, we got a few more. Astrotraumatic Insemination Ryu for $5 says, "Yeah, as a theist myself, I choose to believe essentially that the creator wrote down the math formulas we're attempting to discover." Yeah, that's actually been a long-standing position among theists. And yeah, the natural versus God dichotomy isn't one that theists are required, or anyone is required to draw. Lily Thomas for $2 with their first super chat. Thank you so much. Says AIG is a bag of pelagic tunicates. Take a drink for that. Although, I think you have reversed who's using the adult toy that pelagic tunicates look like, because they look. Yeah, I'll just leave it there, and then I will also update the counter, which I'm actually having a little bit of fun with. I like that it actually works, and it took a fair bit of tweaking to make this work. So. Oops. And I just screwed it up somehow. Oh,
yeah, Vagary's reading you for filth right now. They said, Dapper, not a linguist, dinosaur. Now let me just conjugate this Hebrew phrase and translate these Egyptian hieroglyphs.
I actually am really bad at conjugating Hebrew, to the point where I basically just don't do it. I'm marginally better at translating hieroglyphics, but also Dapper's a professional.
Yeah.
What is true? Have you ever seen me conjugate a Hebrew verb?
No, but that doesn't mean you haven't done it.
Okay,
Or
but
can't.
of all the people who would have seen me conjugate Hebrew, you're like one of the 3 who would be most likely to see it.
Isn't it the ability to survive? Think this.
No, it's the ability to reproduce successfully. It's one of the problems with the phrase. Fitness is not about just survival, right? For instance, you might think that an octopus isn't very fit because they only reproduce once and then they die. Whereas, as a human, you can reproduce several times and keep surviving after you finish reproducing, even for decades. Many humans survive for decades after you stop reproducing.
We can't even breathe underwater. Can't lay eggs.
Oh, Goop23, I missed your super
We don't
chat.
have
I'm
a distributed neuron, whatever, like our brains aren't distributed all the way through our body. They're just stuck up here.
Yeah. Goop23
We don't
for
have beaks.
No. Goop23 for $5 said, Googling God substitute while cooking because I ran out of God. Nice. Caden Slinker, KPG Survivor says, what about Klingon? Yeah, I mean, I conjugate Klingon verbs all the time. Although it doesn't really mean the same thing in Klingon because it's such a heavily agglutinative language that, yeah, you don't really...
I legitimately thought you were going to say glutinous, and I was like, oh, no. This is about to take a turn.
Well, it's the same root word, right? Because it has to do with glue and sticking things together. But Klingon is agglutinative, and like heavily so. And in agglutinative languages, you don't really talk about conjugation so much as you do just hacking on various prefixes. So, yeah. Like, there isn't a conjugation table.
That way, you really don't conjugate things, you just either add a suffix or a prefix.
Yeah.
Sometimes both.
Like, there's no conjugation table that you're going to look up for Klingon verbs. If you know what a Klingon verb is, you know how to form it if you know the various prefixes and suffixes. And I just lost what I was talking about. Oh, right, octopus, right. Okay, but here's the other thing, right? A very successful octopus lays hundreds to thousands of eggs in that one reproductive event. Or, conversely, might fertilize possibly tens of thousands of eggs if you're a particularly fit male. So, like, does that make it less fit? I would argue no, that's a very high fitness individual at that point. I don't think any human is ever going to be as fit as the fittest male octopus could possibly be. But there's so much surviving.
I just got a sad... Because I thought about my octopus friend.
Oh, yeah.
Anybody that watched that, how long did you cry?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, right? Like, that's just how it works for cephalopods broadly. Lieutenant Professor Savage Cobra says for $5, AIG is a bag of organs many male vertebrates use for conjugation or for conjunction. That should be conjugation, but we'll take it. All right, here we go.
This went through for a while now. Which survived the fit? What do you mean by fit? You're able to survive. Which survived the fit? What do you mean by fit? You're able to survive.
No, it's reproduced, but okay.
I can debunk Strawman too.
Yeah, that's another thing, is like, if you were like the best at surviving ever, but you never reproduced, as far as evolution is concerned, you don't really matter to the future genetic traits of the population that you're a member of. So as far as evolution goes, you basically just didn't exist. Now, if you are doing kin selection situations like many humans and some like insects do, where, you know, like you're not reproducing, but your siblings or your cousins have reproduced enough and you're helping their offspring survive, then in that case, there is a sense in which you are still said to be fit because of the kin selection effect. But we're kind of ignoring kin selection for now because it doesn't happen in most species.
We're going in circles
Alex
here.
Markel in the chat says that octopus suffer post-nut clarity so strong they just die.
Rip. Also,
yeah, rip.
The reproductive organ of many cephalopods is detachable, and it goes swimming off on its own to go fertilize eggs. So even if they didn't die, it's kind of a one-time use sort of situation there. Use it and lose it.
Yeah.
It's called a tautology, And if you like them, I've got another one for you. Do you
Man, I
realize
wanna
in
make
America
a
today,
meme. It's like the octopus comes once. Octopus, the next panel just dies.
Do it.
deafness is a principal cause of total loss of hearing? Think it through for a while. Doesn't really say that.
No, that's not really what a typology
That's a joke that
is.
didn't land.
Yeah, well, they laughed. That's the problem.
I think it's really a poor God substitute, I'll tell you that. Evolutionists have been aware of the problem with natural selection being defined as survival of the fittest for a good many years.
Yeah,
Since
as in
Darwin.
it's never been a thing.
Yeah, they've been aware of this since Darwin because it's never been a thing. And
God.
even Darwin was like, I don't like this description. I'm going to take a drink for that. It was just incredibly stupid. Goodness.
Yeah, that's right. Alex Markel points out that's from Casual Geographic. Tomorrow is when they release the meet and greet pair up for VidCon next month, and I really, 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 really hope that I get to meet Casual Geographic next month.
That'd be cool.
My top 3 are Casual Geographic, Forrest Valkai, and Shama.
Oh, Shama's going to be there too. Oh. That's pretty cool. Let's see. Rosina, Apophenia, God, Keller.
Too late to plan. It's like a month out.
That's too late.
Saying.
For 199 says, cephalopods grow back their peeing, right? Not really, because there's
No.
not really a reason to, because they die after that one instance of reproduction anyway. So yeah, not so much. Yeah. All right, here we go.
In fact, 50, 60 years ago, population geneticists changed the definition, maybe another 400 or 500 years.
No. Oh my goodness. I'm just taking a drink.
They did not. They changed it to get rid of this thing that was never a part of it in the first place.
Look, just read The Origin of Species. While I don't think the phrase differential reproductive success is in there as like those words, the concept certainly is. And like
Honestly, I highly doubt any of them will ever bother reading it because to them that's like a step down from the Satanic Bible.
I mean, I've told the story before, but when my mom found out that I was reading The Origin of Species in like high school, man, it was like she found like a Penthouse magazine under my bed mattress or something. Actually, I think it's probably worse than that. Yeah, I don't know. So, yeah.
Sorry, fearmonger. We've run out of missiles of stupid.
Yeah.
Can't
This'll
put
get
any more
downwards.
keys in. That's gonna happen.
It's only 2 keys, that's it.
Schools. But they changed it from survival of the fittest to differential reproduction.
No, they
They
didn't.
did not
what they were-
change it.
That's just what it always was. Survival of the fittest was
Numpty.
never... Survival of the fittest was never anything more than a slogan. A slogan that most evolutionary biologists aren't big fans of.
What we're saying by that is, look, the individual counts for nothing in evolution.
No, because what's having differential reproductive success? Individuals, right? It's true that evolution doesn't happen to individuals, but individuals are the things that are selected for or against based on their phenotype that is the product of an underlying genotype. I taking another drink. I can't with this. I'm drinking this beer really fascinating because this is dumb. Also, maybe I'm thirsty. I really like Shock Top.
It has everything to do with whether you leave more offspring or not.
Oh, hey, we're a little bit overdue for a quick break. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break. We'll get a chance to get more drinks. You can use the bathroom, get snacks, whatever you need to do. We're going to take a quick break. There will be ads, and the musical filings of Beethoven. I will see y'all in just a few minutes. Okay, we are back. Welcome back. Thank you for sticking with me, everyone. The first thing I want to say is, first, thank you to everyone who is supporting the channel. We have the tracker up here, and a big part of that is because the channel really does need you guys. Without the support, the direct support of my viewers, the channel just wouldn't be able to exist as us. This week, there are going to be 5 Dapper Dino videos. Today is the first day of a consecutive 5 days of new Dapper Dinosaur content going up publicly. If you're a channel member or a patron, then 2 of those videos you've already had access to. But there's a stream today. There's a stream tomorrow. There is a premiere the next day. There is a premiere the day after that. And there is a stream the day after that. So, and just even having that much content that I could possibly make for you guys is only because of your support. And I do recognize that Lieutenant Professor Savage Cobra has just gifted 5 memberships. We will be getting to that after I finish this little bit. So thank you very much for that. So, if you are someone who is currently thinking about supporting or increasing your support or anything like that, and you want to do it in a way that is helpfully predictable for me, because the variations in income on YouTube are kind of wild. There's a few great ways to do that. The best one, for me at least, is the Patreon. That's where I get to keep the most of the money that you guys donate. That comes in at $1 a month at the lowest. You can get a 15% discount if you go annual, so it can come out to like a little under, I think, like $11 per annum. If you want to do that, that's US. There's also the channel memberships. There's a join button right below this video. You join that, it starts at $1.99. The Patreon is linked in the description. Either way, you get early access to all my scripted videos. You also get early access to mirrors of live streams that I do on other channels that I want to put on my channel. So, for instance, the Friday video that's coming out is a mirror of a live stream on Jackson Wheat's channel, where I was talking to a creationist. You can get early access to that. So if you missed them on the other person's channel or you just didn't know about it, you'll get an alert from me when I put that up for early access. You can also get access to the cool Discord, where we have all sorts of fun conversations. We had a bunch of cool stuff happen just today in both general chat and gaming and the meme dump and even the TTRPG off-topic channel. There's a lot of cool channels there. There's a really fun community. At least I think so. I'm actually very, very happy with the community that I've grown around this channel on that server. Now, if a monthly or annual thing isn't your deal, there's still other options. There is the merch store. Right below this video, you'll see a merch shelf. If you don't like any of the merch that's there, try clicking through anyway. It'll bring you to the main store page, where there are other things that I couldn't include on the shelf because it has limited space. There's also a Amazon wishlist linked in the description. It has a bunch of just fun stuff. In fact, today, I just put 2 new RPGs on there. I put in Vaesen and the Loop, Tales from the Loop RPG. And I was like, man, I'll just put those books in there in case anyone wants to get me that RPG. So, that's just a great way to brighten up my day. I mean, I still have my plush facehugger right here at the desk because it brightens up my mood when I see the plush facehugger. So yeah, that's what that stuff is for.
Burr.
It's true. Now, if financial support isn't something you can or want to do, especially if you can't afford it. If you can't afford it, don't give me money. But still, liking this video and sharing this video and commenting on my videos and watching a few videos consecutively all help. By the way, watching on ×2 speed, it does reduce the watch time. But I watch videos on ×2 routinely, so I'm not going to tell you not to. But what I will say is, in that case, watch 2 videos. There you go. Anyway, let's get back into this. Oh, no, wait. First, we have to read out the names and take the drinks. So, let's see. HL Aristoteles, Border Barbecue, Jason Hyatt, Al Trucker, and Old Man Riker just got those. We will take 5 drinks. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And we also need to update the thermometer here. Boom! There we go.
Has to do with the population. So they redefined natural selection as differential reproduction, simply meaning those that leave the most offspring survive. So
no, it's not survive. It's have the biggest influence on the genome of the population following that. What is... Okay, think about this. Does anyone think that just having more kids mean you personally survive longer? Like, how does anyone think that works, right? Like, let's just say that you're a male human, because male humans have, the highest potential reproductive output. Because, well, I mean, they don't have to carry babies. You can have, 20 babies at a time if you're Genghis Khan. Most male humans will never get there, but, like, it's possible, right? What if you manage to impregnate 100 different people at once, and then you die of a heart attack? Because that's probably a lot, and it kind of makes sense that maybe you die of a heart attack. And by at once, I mean they're all simultaneously pregnant. Not that it was one big 101 person orgy in which. Never mind. We're skipping over that now. Sorry, that was starting to go off into a tangent. Right? Okay, great. You're probably one of the most fit human males that has ever existed, because very few males break like 3. That's already unusual. In fact, many human males never reproduce. Okay, but you still didn't survive. Survival is not really a factor at all, except in that if you don't survive to reproduce, then you are heavily selected against. Now, Nicholas Kale Music for $2 dues with their first super chat. Thank you so much. Says new drink trigger Volkswagen Beetle.
I legitimately.
So I'm not going to make.
I want to say Lightning McQueen so that I can just go ka-chow.
Yeah. All right, let me just update this real quick.
Trivia, did you know for the German dub version of Cars that Daniel Brühl played Lightning McQueen?
I did know that. Yep. He can speak all the languages.
He freaking can. Now that guy's not beating linguist charges.
I mean, well,
polyglot. But,
yeah, the polyglot charges.
His mom teaches Catalan, so.
Actually, I remember I had a professor from Spain, and for a while he was working in Catalonia, and he always brought a newspaper because, halfway through every staff meeting, they would just switch to Catalan, a language he didn't speak, so he'd just pull out the newspaper.
Amazing.
He's like, they knew they hired a Spaniard who didn't speak Catalan. I don't care. It's like, okay.
Good.
All the mutations that occur. Simple question. Does this result in you adding to the gene pool by leaving more offspring or not?
Yeah, who could imagine that the thing that matters for evolution is the thing that results in changes to the gene pool or not? The entire point of evolution, right? Okay.
What about mutations contributing to increased reproductive rates?
Some of them do, some of them don't. There you go.
This is Dr. James Crow, arguably one of America's greatest geneticists. At the time of this picture and quote, he was professor and chairman of genetics at the University of Wisconsin Medical School, and he said that the typical mutation...
Remind me, is the chairman of genetics at a medical school a researcher in evolutionary biology, most likely? Or is this someone who's going to be focused on things like genetic diseases and things like that? Yeah, okay. Okay, just making sure that we know who we're talking about here, because this is an appeal to an authority that isn't even an authority.
That's what creationists do.
Yeah.
I've got my, degree in this field, but I'm going to publish in this other totally random journal and then be like, I just got something peer-reviewed.
Mild, usually has no effect, but shows up as a small one.
No, if it has no effect, it can't show up as a small decrease in viability or fertility. Sorry, James Crow, but you're just wrong here. I don't know what else to say. I'm just going to take a drink. Okay, look. A decrease in viability or fertility, or at least fertility, right, is by definition deleterious in evolutionary biology. The definition of deleterious versus beneficial when it comes to mutations in evolutionary biology is literally whether or not you end up having more or less reproductive success as a result of this allele. Right? That is the entirety of it. There's nothing else to it. If it results in a decrease in fertility or a decrease in viability that then later limits your reproductive success, it is deleterious. It's not no effect. Now, the fact is, most mutations are actually of no effect because the majority of the genome is non-functional and therefore can sustain virtually any mutation with literally no effect. Most mutations don't show a small decrease in viability or fertility. Now, I don't know exactly how much we knew about that in 1997. Maybe in 1997, that was a slightly more reasonable thing to say. But we now know, with very high amounts of mathematical confidence, that the average mutation literally does nothing to affect fertility or viability. Literally nothing. Now, of the ones that do have an effect, more of them are deleterious than are beneficial, and that's true. But the vast majority are literally nothing.
Shows up as a small decrease in viability or fertility. Once again, that'd be the wrong way.
Okay, but even if what he said was true, it's only most of them that he's talking about. And deleterious mutations can be selected out, and beneficial ones can reach fixation quickly in a population that's of the right size for that thing to happen. And even if it's not of the right size, it can happen slowly anyway.
By the way, Dr. Crow is retired now, and he's spending what's left of his life working on evolution.
Well, then how's he retired? Is that his hobby? I guess it's his hobby. It's a weird hobby. My hobby is evolutionary biology research. Like, okay, have you ever thought about, like, woodworking or painting? No?
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Trying to improve our understanding of it. Well, let's look at a few more things that are going to impact on this whole business of natural selection to see if it really does work for us.
I love how he's saying this while working for an organization that accepts natural selection as the mechanism by which they get species off of the original quote-unquote kinds from the Ark, right? Answers in Genesis depends heavily on the effectiveness of natural selection. And here is David Menton at the AIG Creation Museum auditorium complaining that natural selection doesn't work somehow. Like, dude, this is bad for you. You need natural selection to get you where you want to go.
Crypto457 says these are the folks who think that genetics work like vampire bloodlines from Vampire the Masquerade.
What is the evolutionary biology version of diablerie? How does that work? Like if
oh no!
Like if a human sucks the blood of a chimpanzee, do they get more evolution points?
Like, what if you know how sometimes species can diverge for like geographic reasons?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a river formed between or whatever. And then a few generations later, maybe humans build a bridge over that water and their populations start to mix again. Maybe it's that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's how you get more evolution points in your evolution pool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We know what happens, but does it really produce fundamentally new organs and creatures?
No, it doesn't. And here's the thing, right? Evolution never really produces anything that's fundamentally new. Everything that evolution produces is simply a modification on whatever came before. Something duplicates, something changes shape, something changes biochemical activity, but it's still fundamentally whatever it was before. Now, you might say that your jaw is fundamentally new structure compared to, like, you know, the earliest chordates like Picaya that just had, like, a hole at the front of their head. But then you realize that your jaw bones are actually the same bones that other bony fish have in gills. Like the jawless fish, right? Now, granted, they're not so much bones as bits of cartilage, but still, those are homologous. Your jawbone is a gill arch. It's just now chomping on things, right? You might think, oh, well, teeth are new. Vertebrates didn't always have teeth. Yeah, but they had denticles on their skin, and they're homologous. The denticles of chondrichthyes, as well as many other primitive, I'll get in a bit, vertebrates, are directly homologous to teeth. Your teeth are basically scales that only exist in your mouth now. Really weird and creepy. Rosana Apophenia Godkiller for $1.99 says, evolution points even have a 23-hour cooldown.
Cries in microtransactions.
Oh.
Lunar Regolith Phantasmal Terrain says, Diablerie gets one closer to the pure genome of pain.
Oh, no. Oh, man. I was not expecting
it's reverse eugenics.
I was not expecting this to go quite so heavily into Vampire the Masquerade. A game I haven't played in a very long time.
Whenever I'm on a stream, you can always talk about Vampire the Masquerade, because you know...
Oh, I know.
I ride for Vampire.
I know. Also, I'm still a bigger fan of the old World of Darkness lore than the new World of Darkness, mostly because the old World of Darkness has lore, and the new World of Darkness has a lot less.
You clearly don't know how many vampire books are out now.
Alright, that's fair, yeah.
Many many specific city ones, plus the like packs for all the way that they streamlined the clans. So there's extra lore now.
Well, okay, in that case, maybe I'm wrong.
They even have lore sheets. It is a brickload of extra lore.
Isn't a lot of that coming out of Modifius? Aren't they the ones with the vampire license right now?
I think so. Yes.
I noticed because I get emails from them because I gave them my email in order to download my Power Rangers rulebook PDF. And now they're like, "Hey, there's a new My Little Pony RPG supplement." And I'm like, I don't care. Sorry, guys. Not that. Look, be a brony all you want. I'm just not one.
Moto Kimura is one of
Teeny Lane, pay $9.99 for 100 evolution points. Or play this 2-hour raid event for a 0.1 chance of 1 evolution point.
You can also get 5 evolution points for watching this quick ad. Also, Motu Kimura is not it. We're going to take a drink for that.
Hang on, let me make the screen bigger.
It's spelled wrong. It's Moto. There's no third.
Motu? Oh, why? Why are they like this?
I don't know.
The great evolutionary geneticist, he came up with a concept known as Chimera's distribution, or the
Chimera's distribution. Where do you get Chimera out of that? It's Kimura. But we'll take. I'm gonna take another. I can't. I'm taking a drink.
Chimera's distribution.
Yeah. Apparently, the most famous, one of the more famous evolutionary biology population genetics guy. Was actually an animal with the body of a lion and a tail that's just a snake. And he had a goat head and a lion head and a dragon head. And he's a Japanese guy. Very, very unusual.
Mutation effect. He said, look, the 0 line right in the middle would be a neutral mutation.
This is a new Pokemon. Mewtwo Chimera. Thanks, Lieutenant Professor Savage Cobra.
Maybe it's Mewtwo Chimera, and it's actually what happens when you take.
That's what he typed. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Mewtwo Chimera. It's Mewtwo Chimera, and what you have to do is you have to breed like Mewtwo and like another Pokemon, and then what pops out in the egg is Mewtwo Chimera.
Hang on, you know what? I actually have a little sprite generator that will mix 2 different Pokemon together. So let me go grab it, and then I'll have chat suggest what we can merge.
Yes.
Merge Mewtwo with.
Or bad, just neutral. The interesting thing is, I don't know of any neutral mutations. They're all at least a little bad.
Nope, that's not what he said. That's literally not a thing Kimura said, right? There are absolutely actual neutral mutations.
So if you look at his curve that he draws, on the left would be the negative mutations, the ones that are harmful.
By the way, Menton is going to pretend that Moto Kimura thought that there either were no or extremely few, and so few as to be irrelevant, positive mutations. And when he says that, we're going to get into why that's just a lie, but we're not there yet.
And over on the right, the curve you see over here would be the positive mutations that are downright beneficial. You notice he didn't put anything over there. Mm-hmm. He said he didn't know of anything that was beneficial to the organism in its normal environment.
Okay, so that's just a flat-out lie. There's only 2 options here. Either David Menton read Kimura's work, in which case he knows this is a lie, or he didn't read Kimura's work, in which case he's not allowed to cite him. Because, hey, spoiler alert, if you don't know what a source says, you're not allowed to cite it. Right? Like, there's a reason that I don't think I've ever cited the Mahabharata in my life. You know why? Because it's way too long for me to read, so I've never done it. Here's that drink, by the way. Here's what actually happened. Moto Kimura realized that if he put in any positive mutations at all, that they swamped his numbers. What Moto Kimura was trying to do is he was trying to figure out a mathematical model for neutral variation, right? Variation that is specifically at that 0 point. And he could account for various amounts of negative mutations in his math without basically having the whole model fall apart. But the instant he included any positive mutations at all, what he found was he ended up having runaway selection in his mathematical models, which rapidly drove the population to fixation as a result of natural selection. But he was specifically trying to study what happens to genetics and that are not under any kind of selection. And so he couldn't include positive mutations. Now, I also want to point out that this no selection zone is generally misunderstood by creationists after I read this super chat. Rosina Apophenia God Keller for $4.99 says, a good neutral mutation is orange fur in grasslands when all prey and predators are red-green colorblind. Yeah, actually, that's an interesting example. So, like, you know how tigers are orange, but that's somehow camouflage in the middle of a green jungle? It's because their prey, primarily artiodactyls, can't actually distinguish between orange and green. And so, as far as a deer is concerned, that tiger is basically invisible. So, yeah. And here's the thing, right? Moto Kimura, in doing this, was explicitly saying that, yes, there are positive mutations. I'm not including them so that I can track neutral variation. So anytime anyone says that that's not what he's doing, he's actually pretending that there are no positive mutations, that's just not true. I'm not going to say it's necessarily a lie, because most people who say that are just, like, not exactly PhDs in anything, right? So, now here's the other thing. Oh, I lost track of what I was talking about with Moto Kimura. Because I read a super chat and then my train of thought went away. Vince O'Connor for $10 says, evolution is badass, silly creationists. I tend to agree. Yeah, I do. So, I mean, evolution can do a whole lot of things that are really, really cool. And, update again. Oh, well, we'll just hit play.
So even...
Oh, I remembered. Selection zone. Okay. Creationists often misunderstand the selection zone. The no selection zone is the area in which genetic drift is stronger than selection, and therefore mutations that have effects that are within the no selection zone cannot reliably be selected for or against by natural selection. And so they can come to fix in the population regardless of their fitness effect within that range. But the problem is that that range changes in size depending on effective population size. Organisms with a higher effective population size have a smaller no selection zone, because the larger your effective population size, the less strong the effects of genetic drift are. Whereas if your effective population size is, like, say, the Noah's Ark example, where effective population size is 5, right? Because the entire genetic diversity that you have is Noah, his wife, and their sons' wives. Because remember, their sons don't have any genetic material of significance that wasn't already in Noah and his wife. So you don't get to count them as 3 individuals for effective population size. You only get to count Noah and his wife, and then their wives, who we can just pretend were maximally unrelated. So in that case, the no selection zone is going to be gigantic. It's basically going to be all possible mutations, because there's going to be so little diversity and such a small population size. On the other hand, if you look at modern humans with our gigantic effective population size relative to, say, the Noah's Ark scenario, the no selection zone is going to be pretty small. Now, it will also take a while, because of that large effective population size, for these genes to come to fixation. But the no selection zone is small, which means that relatively minor positive or negative mutations can be selected out or for. There we go. That's what I wanted to say. Menton, take it away.
On the negative side, he doesn't quite make it to 0 because he doesn't believe there's really any truly neutral ones.
Nope, he just cut off the y-axis because he didn't have an infinite amount of paper to print on.
But notice that the ones that are not terribly negative are the most numerous. That's a good deal, isn't it? And then as they become more and more negative, there are fewer of them. And those that are positively lethal out here, of course, fortunately, very rare. But his whole argument...
Actually, it's hard to say exactly how rare they are, because if it's completely negative or completely lethal in the sense that, like, the embryo doesn't even develop to term, it's hard to tell. For instance, among humans, right, of conceptions, around like 30 to 40% or so aren't even noticed by the person who's pregnant, which is a really high proportion. Now, most of those aren't as a result of mutations, right? Most of those are things like failure to implant, which is usually not a mutation-based thing. But a significant number of them are because of mutations that cause the developing embryo to terminate before it can even cause any significant physiological changes in the person who's pregnant. But we don't really have a good way to measure that, because how would you do that, right? Let's say someone conceives, and then there's a mutation that causes the embryo to stop developing after 4 or 5 cell divisions. And then what? No one's going to notice that. How would you notice that? You don't even know that there's been a conception to check on. You wouldn't notice it. So we actually don't know how rare those are. I do agree that they're probably pretty rare, but it's not something that's easy to measure. And I just want to put that nuance out there. I'm not really saying that Menton is wrong about this point. I just want to point out that very severely lethal mutations are hard to count for that reason, that we don't tend to notice them.
Is a good part of this curve is in a no selection zone. That is, natural selection has no ability to select out these features or to remove them, and as a result, we accumulate mutations. This is this genetic load that's been building ever since Adam and Eve's kids.
Okay, I know this has had a lot of jokes so far, but I'm not going to tell the genetic load joke.
They could marry their own brothers and sisters. They had no negative genetic...
Okay, we're just gonna... It's okay, guys. It's only bad in the present, not in the past. Let's take a drink.
These people's timelines, they just... I'm starting to wonder where they've hid the time machine, because apparently, the further back in time you go, you've got, well, slavery's okay, but also you can marry your siblings, and that's fine. Like, what's the cutoff date for those?
Well, for them, the cutoff date for the sibling marriage would be the delivery of the law to Moses, because that's the first time the Bible has an explicit condemnation of close kin marriage. So they at least have an answer for that. When it comes to slavery, I don't know. I guess it's when people realized it was bad, which is convenient that God apparently realized it was bad, just as humans were figuring it out too.
Baggage to gang up on them. Today, of course, we can't do that because you carry a double dose of bad genes that become homozygous for something really
A double
dreadful.
dose, huh?
Even
Oh, no,
if
it's
there
crashing.
were just a few good, not very good, but slightly good mutations,
Too much
they
gum.
would fall in this no
Yeah.
selection zone where you really can't get rid of them, nor can they really help you. There was a mathematician by the name of...
All right. Well, we'll bring it back. Although, we're actually not that close to being finished. So let me open this back up. Let me hide Vishanti just for a second.
Where is evolution?
Ah, that was loud.
Okay.
Let me hide you for a second there, Vishanti, so that way people don't have to see me fiddling around with screen sharing and whatnot. Here comes Menton again, and no, crashes of programs don't count as Dapper as a professional, because it wasn't me that screwed up. Wait,
Okay.
Are you kidding me? Is it still screwing up again? Holy crap. They can still hear you. You can talk. It's fine.
Okay. All right, cool. So, hey chat.
Where is...
Out of the original 150 Pokemon, which one should we mix with Mewtwo to make
Well, the
the
original
Mewtwo
100
Chimera?
First of all, it's the original 151, but also Mew and Mewtwo,
Sorry,
I think,
well,
should be off.
151, sorry.
All right.
And what was the second thing you said?
I think Mew and Mewtwo should be out of the question for what we're mixing.
They're not too powerful. Doesn't have to do with power.
Okay.
Just saying.
Let's see, I'm trying to get us back to roughly where we. All right, let me share that. Here we go. Hopefully this won't crash again. But we have a super chat from Rosana Apophenia Godkeller, which says, Young Earth creationists have God's morality, but they use utilitarian logic to determine when incest is okay and when it isn't. So actually, I think they would actually say that God uses utilitarian moral philosophy to say when it is and isn't okay, but that they're using divine command theory, which is weird because then it seems to mean that like God gets to use a more rigorous moral philosophy than they do, which is like, I don't know, it's just a weird take. Yeah.
Okay, chat, let me clarify. Out of the original 151, I didn't ask which is your favorite of them. I was asking which one most closely resembles a chimera that we could merge with Mewtwo and thus make our Mewtwo Chimera.
Oh, hey, Fade to Grey, our worldview comrade says, for $2, sorry sis, Moses just said it's a no-go.
How dare you!
That reminds me of the Fallout show where it's just casually dropped that apparently fooling around with cousins it's just a thing that all the vault dwellers do.
Yeah. You're like, oh.
That's a thing. Oh, I'm
Also, he better.
Negative genetic baggage.
I'm waiting for Fearmonger to do a thing.
Okay. Fearmonger, get on it. Yes.
Gang up on them. Today, of course, we can't do that because you carry a double dose of bad genes that become homozygous for something really dreadful. Even if there...
No, it can't be Ditto, because if you read Mewtwo and Ditto, then you just get Mewtwo. It's
no.
Like, that's one of the only things I ever used Ditto for in Pokemon, was breeding Pokemon that I actually wanted to breed, that I didn't have both of. Alright, here we go.
Were just a few good, not very good, but slightly good mutations, they would fall in this no selection zone where you really can't get rid of them.
What?
Fear traumatic insemination monger says, remember everyone, it's not inbreeding if you say no chromo.
Oh my goodness. That's... Ooh. Yeah, okay. Alright. Also, I want to point out that according to Moto Kimura's work, the no selection zone is probably not evenly distributed on either side of the zero. It's probably skewed towards the negative side, but whatever. Just going to ignore that for now.
Nor can they really help you. There was a mathematician...
Okay, well, so he's just not going to mention the fact that that's... I mean, I understand it, but like I said earlier, that's literally the opposite of Moto Kimura's conclusion. Moto Kimura did not include positive mutations, not because they had no effect, but because they had such a huge effect that he couldn't do his math if he included any. So he opted not to include them in his model. Because remember, models aren't an exact replication of real life. That would just be real life. Models are simplifications that can help you to make predictions about real life with the understanding that your prediction is going to be off a bit because of the simplifications of your model, right? So like, when you try to calculate, okay, kids in like 8th grade for Americans, calculate how long it will take for this baseball to fall to the ground if you roll it off of a shelf that's 4 feet tall. Okay, so you get all your calculations, you get your gravity equation, you get out your calculator, you do the numbers. But what does that problem usually say? It usually says things like, ignore air resistance and friction. Why? Because those are really complicated things, and the difference that they're going to add to your calculation is going to be so minuscule that when you then later do the experiment with like a stopwatch, which is the thing I did as a kid in high school, right? Or not high school, but in elementary school. We did the thing where we rolled a ball off of a table and timed how long it took to fall. The error involved in timing that is going to be higher than the difference from making a more accurate model. So you don't make the more accurate model. It's the same thing in evolutionary biology. All of our evolutionary biology models are simplifications. But they're simplifications that still make useful predictions that have been confirmed in actual population genetics when we've actually tested populations. Donald Jaramillo for $2 says, does that explain why God needs a starship? Yeah. What does God need with a starship? It's a really good question. And it might be the best part, Star Trek V, a movie which, generally speaking, I'm not the biggest fan of. Which I feel like is not like a super hot take or anything. It's not the best Star Trek movie. It's better than Insurrection. I'll give it that. It didn't have a Worf with a giant nose pimple for some reason.
Ugh.
Yeah. It also didn't dedicate an entire scene to two female leads talking about their boobs. And using the word boob.
By the name of Haldane, mathematician, geneticist, and he came up with what has come to be known as Haldane's dilemma. He basically argued that for creatures that don't reproduce very quickly, that have longer lifespans, say like humans, primates, what have you, most mammals, you couldn't get enough successful mutations occurring in one individual to really do anything.
Ooh. Okay, I'm going to take a drink. Why didn't that add anything? Here we go. Okay, so Haldane's dilemma actually only applies to the kinds of organisms that we usually think of as reproducing quickly. Because Haldane's dilemma only applies to haploid populations that reproduce asexually. Now, Vishanti, I know it's been a little while since high school, but to your understanding, are humans either haploid or a species that reproduces asexually?
I'm gonna go with haploid.
No, you're incorrect about that. They are in fact diploid. Yep. And they
You said something that reproduces asexually. Humans, right?
Yeah, humans definitely reproduce asexually. I mean, hey, I know that everyone in my chat who's had a kid definitely didn't engage in any sexual activity to make that happen. That's not how humans work.
Basically, yeah, you just cleave in half in the lake.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Splits off, like, the moon and Theia.
There you go.
Like hitting the earth. That's precisely how genetics works.
Yeah. So, here's the thing. Haldane's dilemma, which has to do with things like the cost of natural selection, which, I'm now realizing is on screen, right? It specifically targets that kind of group because that is the group that has the least ability to get rid of negative mutations when they occur, right? The reason for this is you can't do any kind of recombination or any kind of offsetting of negative mutations as a result of beneficial mutations in a different lineage. Whereas in, say, humans, let's say one human has a beneficial mutation and a different human has a different beneficial mutation. Well, in the future, their descendants could breed together and get both beneficial mutations. On the other hand, if one human has a deleterious mutation that gets passed down, the positive mutation from a different lineage could offset that. Additionally, you can even get originally unlinked beneficial mutations to co-occur on the same chromosome as a result of crossover events. But none of this works for asexually reproducing haploid organisms. The reason haploid is important is because even in asexually reproducing diploid organisms, you can still have chromosome crossover, which helps limit the problem with Haldane's dilemma. So humans never actually were valid targets for this Haldane's dilemma. And so what ends up happening is when you calculate the number of offspring that a particular organism needs to overcome this cost of selection, when the organism is actually both haploid and asexually reproducing, it ends up with very high numbers. But a friend of the channel, Zach Hancock, who runs the channel, what is it? Talk PopGen. That's his channel, Talk PopGen. He has a video on this where he actually goes through all of the math to determine how many offspring a human would have to have in order to overcome the modified version of Haldane's dilemma that is modified for a diploid sexually reproducing organism. It's like 3. Hey, Vishanti, can humans easily have 3 or more kids per female?
Yeah.
Hey, I guess humans don't have to worry about it then, because there you go. That's all it takes. We have a super chat here. Rosana Apophilia God Killer says, Dapper Dinosaur, can your species go through parthenogenesis in special cases like chickens? I don't know. I have the wrong parts for parthenogenesis, and I've never done it. But the answer is maybe. So, yeah, that's all I got. All right, we're going to hit play, and I am going to do some math and then update the thermometer.
In a paper he published some years ago, back in 1957, he said, in this paper I shall try to make quantitative the fairly obvious statement that natural selection cannot occur with great intensity for a number of characters at once unless they all happen to be controlled by the same genes, which is very unlikely. Well, Haldane's dilemma has been sort of dismissed by a lot of people, but in a paper published in the American Journal of Physical Anthropology, this investigator made this.
So one of the things I want to point out is that Haldane's dilemma is a dilemma not for evolution, but for certain models of evolution. Also, Donald Jaramillo, I'm sorry, for $2 says, women talking about boobs fails the Bechdel test. Does it?
Yeah. Well, no, actually, it doesn't unless they happen to mention, like, a guy in that conversation as well.
Which they don't.
Which they don't. I mean, if it's just their boobs.
I mean,
but I'm pretty sure that it would end up failing anyway because they say, oh, I hope so-and-so likes it, or so-and-so does like it, or so-and-so paid for it. I got this for so-and-so. Like,
not in Star Trek Insurrection, they don't.
No, not an insurrection.
In fact, I would say most of Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Why would you remind me that movie exists? Ugh.
Sorry, but most of Star Trek: The Next Generation content, I would say, probably passes the Bechdel test because named female characters with first and last names frequently have conversations in Star Trek: The Next Generation that aren't about men at all. So,
Good job, Star Trek.
although, does it count if the conversation is about one of their sons? I feel like it shouldn't count.
I mean, yes, it's about men, just like as a category.
What if it's a baby?
It's not really.
Because
You know, let's consult someone who's fluent in like trope poskim.
Okay.
So
Because there's that episode where Troy ends up being pregnant and has a baby, and it's a boy, and then he grows up really fast, and then he goes and turns back into an energy being, and Troy had no say in this, but she went through with the pregnancy anyway.
A rather refreshing comment. Though the scientific community in general no longer regards Haldane's dilemma as a problem, there remains little clarity as to how it became dismissed, and as recently as 1992, the issue is still regarded as a challenge.
Okay, well, here we are, some 32 years later, and it's not an issue, because if you want to see someone go through the actual math, go check out Zach Hancock's channel. He's a PhD population geneticist, and he will walk you through the math of Haldane's dilemma as regards diploid sexually reproducing organisms. And the answer for haploid asexually reproducing organisms is that they can actually have that many offspring, so it doesn't really matter much.
By evolutionary biologists. Well, some people have rather despaired of whether natural selection can really do anything in the way of producing fundamentally
Did he mean despairing?
Probably.
new creatures.
Yeah, look, here's the thing. We all understand that natural selection is not the source of genetic variation. I'm just taking a drink because that's all he's arguing here, is like, people have despaired of natural selection producing new variation. Yeah, ever since Darwin. Not even Darwin thought that natural selection was the origin of new variation. So, there you go. Which also means that it's time to open the third beer of the night. Here we go. Here's another beer pour. Let's say I make my minimal acceptable beer pour, which is to say no more than one bubble in vertical extent. Monolayer is the minimum acceptable amount of bubbles for a beer pour, which...
Okay.
Not quite. I screwed it up. I'm going to attribute it to the fact that I'm already 2 beers in. Although it cleared up almost immediately, so it's still not great.
In a paper in Annual Review of Genomics and Human Genetics, these investigators said, it remains a mystery how the undirected process of mutation, combined with natural selection, has resulted in the creation of thousands of new proteins with extraordinary, diverse, and well-optimized functions. It's just a flat-out mystery.
I mean, I would disagree, but I don't know what else was in that paper. And honestly, I'm kind of tired of just the random appeals to authority. David, if you have an argument, you could just present the argument, right? You don't... Saying the names of a bunch of people who are better credentialed than you are isn't really impressive. Especially when what they're saying isn't really the consensus in their own fields. Rosina Apophenia God Keller for $4.99 says, how tiny are Dapper's AIGs a sack of hemipenes sips? They vary, is the answer. Because I pace myself to make sure I can stay in control of what the heck's going on. So, yeah. They vary. I don't really have a better answer than that. I don't have a set amount, but I'm definitely not, like, drinking entire beers, or certainly not taking shots because, well, I die. So, yeah. Also, I don't think we're going to get the special avatar. I guess it's not impossible. We're going to be wrapping up soon, so we'll actually get a little bit more Menton in, and then we'll start wrapping up.
Now, there's a growing number of investigators and scientists who really are losing their confidence in natural selection as the whole answer.
Well, yeah, because it's not the whole answer. Darwin knew it wasn't the whole answer. That's why he wrote about sexual selection in The Descent of Man. I'm taking a drink. Jeez, it's literally since Darwin, it has not been the whole answer. Right? We have all sorts of other stuff. We have epigenetics, we have sexual selection, we have genetic drift, we have niche construction, we have niche partitioning, we have evolvability as a heritable phenotype, right? Like, we have all of these things that we know about, and they're part of modern evolutionary theory, and have been for decades. In fact, the neo-Darwinian synthesis that occurred back in like the 50s was already adding new things on top of natural selection, sexual selection, and mutation. Right? They were already bringing in things like drift. Like, this is not a new development. This is just standard evolutionary biology. And, I mean, yeah, I guess it's true that natural selection isn't adequate to explain everything we see in evolution, but that's literally never been anyone's position, not even Darwin's position. In fact, even before Darwin discovered sexual selection and wrote about it in works after The Origin of Species, he already knew that certain things, like the peacock's tail, which he later explained successfully with sexual selection, couldn't be accounted for on the basis of natural selection, and he knew that was a hole in his theory. Something he then later filled in with sexual selection. So, alright, but we are coming up to the point where it is probably about time to get out of here. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this. I've had fun. Vishanti, do you have anything coming up that you want to tell people about?
Yes, actually. Stall for time, I have to go grab the link.
Okay, so what's coming up tomorrow is Jackson with Jackson. That is the show that normally would have been today. Jackson couldn't be here today, and so we have moved that to tomorrow. So at 6 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Tune in here for Jackson with Jackson. Then on the next day, I'm going to double check because I believe we are having a Roger video. Roger from Mud Fossil U. So that is going to be Chemistry is Hard, Mud Fossil University, and Living Volcanoes. So in this one, Roger is going to badly misunderstand very basic chemistry, even chemistry I know about. And also tell us how volcanoes aren't, like areas where there's high pressure magma welling up from the mantle. In fact, no. They are the anuses of gigantic living organisms. So, take that. Rosina Apophenia God Keller for $19.99 says, Dream of barbed hemipenes. I probably will not, but thank you. Appreciated.
Okay.
You have the thing that you were...
Yeah, I do. Okay, so... After a lot of delay, I finally set up my Patreon, so I put the link in the chat, and
Nice.
Yeah, it's there if you want to support me. I am going to start putting stuff out.
Bait Vishanti.
I just had to, I had to incentivize myself to do it, and I realized that if I just went ahead and set the Patreon up, then it would literally force me to put stuff out. So
Fair enough. Nice. All right. For $5, Donald Haramia says, "Does anyone hear yodeling when seeing the slideshow above?" Yeah, I assume.
Yeah.
Virtually everyone does. Honestly, virtually everyone. Okay, so then on Friday, I'm putting out the. Oh, sorry, no, I didn't say the time for the. So that premiere about Roger is going to be at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. Then the next day at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, there will be a mirror of the chat I had between Rob Groen and Jackson Wheat and myself. If you are familiar with, Logic, he did several videos about Rob Groen. He's the one who won't stop sniffling and then wiping it on his hands while taking extremely brain dead takes on virtually everything. That one I believe is called... Oh no, I didn't call it that, but it's called Debate. Dumpster Fire, Rob Groen with Jackson Wheat mirror. The description, though, starts out with, on January 24th, 2024, I had a talk with Jackson Wheat and Rob...
Dapper, I gotta go grab my hamburger. It delivered right now, so I have to go.
Okay.
And yes, Tesla Ranger, I have seen Kindred the Embraced. I own it on DVD.
I had a talk with Jackson Wheat and Rob Groen. Turns out Rob Groen is a gigantic piece of crap, but that didn't fully come to light until about 2/3 into the video. So there you go. That's how I start out my description of that particular video. So that's Friday. Then on Saturday at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, we will be having the direct sequel to this. I'm hoping Vishanti can be there. I can't guarantee it because she's not even here now. But then on Tuesday, we are going to be having the next Kent with Bent at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. That brings us 5 videos into the future, a full week. Remember, there is a new Dapper Dinosaur video every single day for the next 4 days at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. So if you ever this week need a cool thing to do, this channel, noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, there will be a video for you to watch that is brand new, at least to the public. With that being said, I want to say thank you again to everyone. You guys have been extremely generous. I've been having fun with the little counter guy. I'll just show you, it can go up. Pretty cool. With that being said, if you are a member of the Patreon or the Discord and you're interested, in just a few minutes, I will be having a Power Rangers SPD watch party in the general chat, the voice chat for that. So feel free to come over and say hi for that if you are a channel member or a patron. And other than that, I hope to see all of you tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day. Bye. Hey, before you leave, I just want to take a second to thank my patrons and channel members, especially those pledging $20 or above. Benthoven, Philravara, Tapioca Weasel, Whispers, Elleron Teller, Horseflesh, Ian Chen, Kelvin Brostek Van Manen, Landon Knoll, Mabdy Babdy, Sphincter of Doom, Wallace, John Ackerman, E2V, and Strawberry Vein. It's because of my channel members and patrons whom you're seeing on screen that this channel can stay afloat. Without you, it would all shut down. If you want to join the team, there's a link to join the channel below this video, and there's a link to join the Patreon in the description. On the Patreon, you can get a 10% discount for pledging annually, and either way, you get early access to virtually all of my scripted videos, often 3 to 5 months before they come out for the general public. Thanks for watching.